Hey guys, welcome to the channel. My name is Chris. I'm a real-world fast jet flying instructor, and we're here with the Indiafoxtecho M-346 at Lima India Romeo Juliet, which is Marina di Campo airport, a small Italian airport off the west coast of Italy. And I've got to say, this is the pre-release version, and it's still being worked on, and it will slightly change in terms of flight dynamics, but I couldn't resist doing some aerobatics, so I'll commentate as we go through and talk about some top tips. I'm rotating about 100 knots using full power, gear and flap up as soon as I get positive rate, and I'll make sure I look at the flight path marker to make sure I have a slight climb as we get towards the departure end of the runway. We're about 250 knots at the departure end, not enough for an over the top, because the min speed for this aircraft is 200 knots, so each time I do a vertical manoeuvre, I'm looking not to exceed that. But I will gather some speed in this positional turn. It's a 270 back in towards 90 off ground line. Once I get to 300 knots, I'll then cash in. I'll put back pressure geared up a little bit to try and get towards crowd center, and then achieve about 350 to 400 knots for my 3/4 loop with a half roll. It's pretty tricky flying around here with all the hills, but it just adds to the fun. Great views off to the 6 o'clock, great condensation on the wings. I'm looking over the top to pick up my feature. And then about 30 degrees left until vertical nose down. I'll start the roll. It's not a half roll, it's a quarter roll, but there we go. And I'm powering back so I don't accelerate too much, because this aircraft has a few niggles with the flight dynamics, and if I go too fast, it'll just pancake into the ground. But like I say, it's still being worked on pre-release, and hopefully it'll be a little bit easier to fly when it gets released to the public. There we go, looking back towards my feature. I'm trying to aim for the nearest threshold, about 30 degrees inbound, so I can do a very tight barrel roll. I'm aiming for about 350 to 400 knots in each case, and that means I can stay above my 200 knots, and then pitch and roll, and I'm making sure I complete the roll before I hit the ground, obviously. And then of course I need to line up with the runway, so I'm using the HSI course bar, which is lined up reference to the runway, and then I'll pitch to about 5 or 6 G over the top, and I'm slightly misaligned, so I'll just roll the effector towards the runway to fix that, and then I power back again on the way down, and a bit of anticipation, about 1,000 to 1,500 feet to pitch back to level. And then from here we'll go into a roll off the top, also known as the Immelman. Always looking back towards my line feature. Using track IR, it's invaluable. I couldn't fly these aerobatics without track IR. It'd be, well, I wouldn't be as accurate, that's for sure. Off the top, slow roll, keeping the power back. Important you don't accelerate. So you want to be less than 250 knots, I would advise, for this portion, which is the roll and pull through, or the split S. As we get to level, I'll apply full power, and then we're going for somewhere in between a min radius kind of max rate turn, but I'm using full power and then enough back pressure on the stick to keep my speed steady. So the more G you apply, the more drag, and therefore the aircraft shouldn't accelerate even with max power here. I've powered back slightly because I let the speed increase a little, but I'm back where I started, over the runway. I can roll out, apply full power, and I'll go up for my reverse Cuban 8. So 60 degrees nose up, I'll wait for 2,000 feet AGL, then roll, pause, pull, and you can see the condensation of the wings on the small inset picture, which just looks awesome. I mean, look at that scenery. Power back to stop accelerating, but as soon as I can assure that I'm not going to hit the ground, power comes back on for the high speed pass. Not that high speed, because I'm going to go for a run in and brake. So this is the end of the sequence, and now we'll talk about how to land it from an overhead pattern. A roll, pull, no speed brake. I've gone to idle, of course, and I'll just pull it around the corner such that you use a lot of alpha. It'll slow itself down. Below 230, I'll put gear, I'll put flap to take off. If you're already below 200 knots, I think 200 knots is the limit for full flap. But once the aircraft decelerates through 200 knots, I'll put flaps to down. I'm looking for 45 degrees off the approach end threshold and 150 knots at the perch, which is around about now. I bank it up to about 50 to 60 degrees bank, about 10 to 15 degrees nose down. And I'm just referencing that threshold and applying enough bank so I can line up for my short final. Keeping the speed about 140 to 150, Once I get to this stage, I can start bringing it back towards 130, and I have to use 5 degrees for my approach because of the trees, and you'll notice that displaced threshold, I guess because of the trees on short final. That was pretty close. Here's the replay. Oh, that's a foul. I landed in the underrun. Now, it should be suitable for landing, but it's very naughty. Shouldn't be landing prior to the displaced threshold. And that's it. Now we'll have a look at safing up the seat in the correct procedure, because you don't want to do it in the wrong order. So the first thing I switch off here is the MAS, Master Armament Safety Switch. And then before you open the canopy, you must make the seat safe, which is that switch. Then click on the pin to make the pin travel and make the seat completely safe. And then I can open the canopy. I'm not entirely sure if you're allowed to taxi with the canopy. If you know, please put it in the comments. But that's the end of the sortie. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it gets released pretty quick and you get a chance to play with it yourself. But until the next time, take care, fly safe.